Okay, I know that I have already rambled on and on and on about Aimee Lou Wood's style in the newest season of The White Lotus, but we're gonna talk about it again because the thing is, I had more to say. Since I shared that video, I have found more really cool items that I think are like really good versions of some of the things that she wears in the show. And honestly, I've even made some like categorical breakthroughs in terms of things to search for, like specific search terms or types of items to look for if you're trying to recreate some of her looks. I'm gonna walk you through all of that. I promise not to ramble on and on and on, and we're gonna keep this tight. We're gonna keep it succinct and to the point, and to that end, we're gonna just jump right into this. And the first thing I wanna talk about is this sheer mini dress situation that I did include in the last video, but I have found some better, I think, versions of very similar vintage items to this dress, including this dress from the 1970s that like is a very similar color palette. And the thing that I am most excited about is the material is almost identical. So the dress that Aimee Lou Wood is wearing was a vintage piece. And if you look at the photos from the vintage seller, you can tell that it has this really interesting like metallic lurex woven pattern to the fabric itself. And I think the metallic effect of that was doing a lot in terms of the transparency. And I talked a lot about how the costume designer for White Lotus played with this idea of transparency in Aimee Lou Wood's outfits. So I'm not going to get into a lot of detail about that in this video, but the important thing to note here is that the effect of that metallic thread in the fabric is literally reflecting light instead of letting it pass through the sheer material. And that's giving this effect where moments of this are transparent and moments of this aren't. So I was just so excited to find another dress made of this same material. Obviously, this dress is full length, but you could so easily have this hemmed, and you could have it hemmed to exactly the length that you want it. You can also wear it full length, and I think it would be a really pretty version of like a wedding guest dress. But if you love the mini length of her outfit, super easy to get something like this hemmed. In a very similar vein, I also found this lurex chiffon like caftan. I like that it's a very similar like kind of watercolory color palette. And even though the lurex in this fabric is not the exact same pattern, it's still doing the same kind of thing, which is to provide these moments of like metallic reflective shimmer against this very sheer backdrop. Again, this one is full length. Again, you could very easily have that shortened. I think you could probably also have the lining of this removed if you wanted it to be totally sheer, like the one that she wears is. Okay, I also found this dress, which is kind of a different take, but a very similar concept. Instead of the metallic like shimmer coming from the lurex thread, in this case, it's coming from this like full coverage smattering of sequins. Again, it's a very similar color palette with these like soft blues and greens. And I think the overall effect of this would be so similar if you were trying to recreate that Aimee Lou Wood outfit. Okay, and then the last item I found in this category is more expensive. It's $400, which is a little bit steep, but it's so pretty. From the 1990s, it's this like beaded mesh tunic. And now that I'm looking closer, this listing is actually for the tunic and the skirt. If you only wanted one half of the set, you could totally just message the seller and ask if they would be willing to sell them separately. And you would probably get yourself a pretty decent discount in the process. For the sake of recreating the Aimee Lou Wood outfit, I would just get the tunic part. I love that the length of it is this like really micro mini. And if you zoom in and get a better look of the beading on this, it's just so pretty. I love the color palette. I love the design. I love the texture that that beading is providing. And again, the beading is kind of providing this like element of opaqueness where the tunic itself is mesh, so it is a little bit sheer and transparent. In my last video, I also shared a number of like beaded wooden bags. And I did stumble across a few more that I wanted to share, including this little wooden beaded bag from the 60s. I love that the color of this is really uniform and consistent, but the texture is really ornate. Like the pattern of the beading itself is so intricate with these little like connected flowers. So it's giving so much texture while still being overall a really neutral piece. I also really like that the handles of the bag are these like chunkier, more geometric beads. And then even like the clasp of the bag is made of these wood beads. I love this one and I had to share it with you. I also wanted to share this little bamboo bag from the 70s. Again, I love that it's this like intricate woven bead design, but this one has the addition of this like really bright yellow cord as the handles. I love that the bag itself is attached to the cord with these like bigger wood rings. And I love that the overall shape of this bag is like really laid back and loose and casual and undone. And I just think it would be like so playful and fun, especially in a summery kind of outfit. And it's a really great way to add a little bit of a boho element if your style is not inherently super bohemian. While we're on the topic of bags, I also wanted to share this like macrame sequin bamboo fringe situation, which if you saw my last video, you will know that this encompasses so many of the qualities of her clothing in a single piece. So she wears a lot of this like crochet macrame kind of material. She wears a lot of fringe. She loves a little moment of sequin. We also talked about like the bamboo hoop handles being kind of reminiscent of the flower garland that she wears in this episode. And I just love the idea of being able to like mishmash all of those different qualities into a single bag. This bag is so fun. It's kind of over the top, but because it's a really neutral color, it still somehow feels like kind of versatile. It's definitely more boho than some of the other options, but I think it's so fun. On the topic of fringe, we talked a lot about this outfit in the last video, which was obviously a riff on like a hula girl outfit. And I shared a bunch of different ways to kind of interpret the idea of fringe without actually recreating the fringe skirt itself. That last bag I just talked about is a really good example of that, where you're including this like really long dramatic fringe, just in a different context. And one of the reasons that I chose to approach the fringe in that way is because finding vintage fringe skirts is extremely difficult. You can find lots of leather fringe, but it's kind of a different vibe than what we're going for. And I just didn't find that many fringe tasseled skirts that felt like they were speaking the same language. And then about a week ago, I had a breakthrough and I discovered the category of these like 1940s, 1950s burlesque outfits. And I mean, these were literally costumes. There's lots of them from like the World War II era, but so many of them include fringe skirts. And it's the exact same kind of fringe as the skirt that Aimee Lou Wood wore. This skirt, for example, I think is such a great take on the entire concept of a fringe skirt. It's this like really long, dramatic fringe. I like that it's this like off-white ivory color because the skirt is already so like, it's already really dramatic. I don't think you need to add a lot of color on top of that. And I just think it's so pretty. This one is $450 and honestly, I will say, as I've been looking for these, they do tend to be more on the expensive side of things. I think because they're really special, one-of-a-kind pieces, and tend to be a little bit more rare. But I wanted to share the kind of category of these burlesque fringe skirts. So if you want to look for them on your own, you know that this is kind of where you should be looking. Let's talk about caftans. I think if you are going to recreate the Aimee Lou Wood style caftan, I would look for things that are sheer chiffon, but with some sort of embroidery or embellishment or beading on top. I really love this orange one, for example. I think the color is obviously really pretty, but the embroidery is doing so much in terms of adding that texture. And again, playing with these different levels of transparency. I also love this little like beaded trim around the bottom. And this feels very much like the orange version of that like yellow-green caftan that she was wearing in that last photo. I think this little mini version is also a great option. It's obviously short instead of being full length, but again, you have this like sheer chiffon base fabric with this like heavily embroidered detailing on top. I like that the embroidery on this also includes some sequins. It's just providing that like really pretty shimmer. And the color palette of this, that like super bright blue with this really coppery kind of embellishment, I think is very pretty and very Aimee Lou Wood. The last thing I'm gonna say about caftans is like you can totally style these the way that her character does in the show, which is mostly as a beach cover-up. She literally always wears a caftan over a bikini, but I think it could also be nice to take the caftan out of the beach and bring it kind of into a different universe. I recently found this caftan at a local vintage shop, and I just tried this on in the store over like a t-shirt and jeans, and I honestly loved the way it looked. Like I loved it more than I expected to love it. And I did buy it, and it is now hanging in my closet waiting to be experimented with. So all that to say that while caftans can be a great like beachy option, I think you can also get creative with how you interpret the caftan and use it as a layer in a different kind of context. I think another way that you can kind of interpret the idea of a caftan without actually wearing a caftan is something like this little yellow tunic. It has a very similar feeling. It's made of this very sheer, like gauzy boho material. This one happens to be a very similar color to the caftan that she wears, but you could totally pair this with like a pair of jeans and just wear it as a top instead of feeling committed to like the whole caftan. You could obviously put like a tank top or something under this if you didn't want it to be sheer, or you could just layer it over like a really pretty bra or a bralette, and I think that would be a very pretty way to wear a tunic like this. In a very similar color palette, I also found this embroidered scarf that I think is so pretty. That like marigold yellow with this like pink and green embroidery and these little tiny sequins. I think you could wear this like as a sarong and it would be really, really special. You could totally play with different ways to wear this. You could style it as a skirt, you could style it as a dress, you could style it as a top. There are so many different things you could do with a piece like this. And I think for $28, like it's both really special and really versatile. Another outfit we did not talk about at all in the last video was this outfit, which is obviously one of her more casual looks with this like little crochet crop top. And I did find this top, which feels so similar. I feel like the overall shape of this is just like very in line with the version that she is wearing. And it does also have the addition of lurex thread in the fabric. And I like that in this case, it's paired with this kind of like very off muted green. So the sparkle is adding something that would otherwise feel like very neutral. In terms of other kind of casual tops she might wear, I feel like she would totally wear something like this. Again, it's a very like muted natural color, but it has a tiny bit of lurex that gives you just a tiny bit of sparkle that makes it feel not overly casual and also not overly sparkly or dressy. I also think the effect of these sequins at the top of the shirt are just really pretty. Something about it feels almost like it's an organic material, like they could be made of seashell or something, which I think just makes it feel very much like the kind of piece that her character would wear. Moving away from the casual end of the spectrum and talking about her more formal outfits. One outfit we did not talk about last time was this black dress situation. And the reason we didn't talk about it last time is not that I didn't like it. The truth is, this is probably my single favorite outfit that she wore in the entire season, but it was really hard to find comparable vintage versions of this dress. This dress is vintage. It's Alexander McQueen. There was exactly one of these on eBay that somebody bought before me, and I have been scouring the internet for months trying to find another one and haven't been able to. I also haven't been able to find a lot of vintage options that felt similar until now. I have literally been since the show aired, I have been trying to find some version of this black dress, and I have finally compiled enough good options that I feel I can confidently share them and recommend them to you. We're gonna start with what is arguably my favorite. It is a little bit more expensive, but it's such a special piece that I think it could be worth the ticket price if you think of it like an investment piece that you're adding to your collection. And the reason I think this piece is so special is the style of the beading and the embroidery. The bits around the collar feel almost like seaweed or like botanical, but then it also has these embroidered stars and these very pretty, ethereal, kind of swirly lines. And the overall effect of all of those things combined is just breathtaking. The shape of the dress is also really pretty with these just little kind of fluttery cap sleeves and the V-neck slip underneath. I'm obsessed with this dress. The dress Aimee Lou Wood wears is also two pieces. There's a sheer beaded layer as the top layer and an opaque tank dress underneath it. She just wears the top layer over a bikini. If you wanted to do something similar, I think you could just wear the top layer of this without that slip underneath. But having the slip gives you a lot of versatility. And again, I just think this is such a special, incredible piece. This one is probably my second favorite. It's much less formal. It has this crochet netting as the top layer, with these bigger sequins added on top. But I think the overall effect of it is very similar, where it's just a hint of embellishment. That was one of the hard things about trying to recreate this look. It's easy to find dresses that are all sequins, but the one that she wears just has a smattering of sequins. And the effect of that is that in really dim lighting, you're getting just these moments of twinkle. And if the whole dress is sequins, it's just not giving you that same kind of effect. So this dress to me, in terms of kind of the density of the sparkle, feels very similar. I also like that it is a bit more casual of a silhouette. And I like that kind of friction between the sparkle of this and the casualness. Again, she wears hers over a bikini, so it's not like she's going to a black tie event. If you are going to a black tie event, might I recommend this really beautiful dress from the 60s. It's full length. It's very heavily beaded, more so than some of the other ones. But I think the style of beading is, again, so pretty. I like that it's these kind of imperfect stripes. And again, it's providing these moments of transparency where there is no beading with sparkle where there is beading. You could totally wear this full length and it would be such a stunning black tie gown. But if you wanted to do a short version of this, like the one that Aimee Lou Wood wears, you could have this tailored. I don't know that it would be the simplest alterations job ever. You would have to have it hemmed, obviously, between those lines of beading. And I wouldn't have just any tailor do something like this. I also think in some ways it would be sad to tailor this dress because it's so pretty as it is. But I also think that clothes are meant to be worn, and if tailoring this is going to motivate you to wear it, that's totally on the table. And by the way, this is a topic that I could talk more about. I think it can be a little bit challenging to figure out when you should alter something vintage and when you should preserve its original form. So if that topic is interesting to you, let me know. I also did find this sheer caftan, which is, again, quite casual, but it feels like a good interpretation of the black dress and her style as a whole, knowing that she wears caftans and would probably reach for something like this. It's much less beaded. The beading is really just around the neckline, but I do think the overall effect of this in dim lighting would be very pretty. And if you wanted to wear it over a swimsuit like she does, this would be an obviously great option. It's also only $26, which is much more affordable than every single option I have shared up to this point. Branching off of the concept of a caftan, I think you could also interpret this like a sarong, which she also wears a lot of, and I found this one that is just so pretty. It's a scarf really from the 30s, but it's this like very pretty sheer black chiffon with this beaded bow motif over the top. I love the like squiggly line around the edge. And again, kind of like that yellow sarong, I think there are so many different styling opportunities with a piece like this. But regardless of how you would style this particular one, I think it would give you that same feeling as the Alexander McQueen black dress. If the concept of a dress does not speak to you at all, I did also find this little 1960s beaded top that isn't sheer, it's not chiffon, but the kind of quality of the beading feels very similar to me. And this I think would be really fun. You could pair this with jeans, like you could totally dress it down, and I think it would be really cool. Okay, and then the last item that I wanted to throw into the mix here while we were talking about her more formal style is this dress, which isn't like any specific item that she wears in the show, but definitely feels like something her character would wear. And I love it. I think it's so pretty. These like really pastel-y blues and pinks are a color palette that she goes for a lot, but then it has this addition of this like really shimmery metallic copper over the top. The little like empire triangle neckline feels very boho to me, especially with that little ruffle right at the waist. And overall, this dress just feels like so feminine and pretty. Again, I think this would be a great option for like a wedding guest dress. And you could totally dress it up in that kind of context, but you could also dress this down and wear it with like a pair of flat sandals to dinner on vacation. And the cut of it, I think, would be extremely comfortable. So like if you were to wear it in a more casual context, I think it would totally make sense. Okay, that is all of my additions to the Aimee Lou Wood White Lotus conversation. I really, truly did my best not to talk your ear off, but I just had to share these things with you. Like, it's so hard when I have already published a video and then I find more things that I think would have been perfect for the video. And in this case, I just found so many that we just needed an addendum. And if you want me to reverse engineer the style of any other characters from any other movies or TV shows, let me know. I've been having a lot of fun with that. I think the idea of recreating like a whole character's wardrobe is really interesting because we're kind of thinking about like what universe are they in and what are the rules of that world that inform the style choices that they're making, in addition to just like what is their taste and their style preference. So it's been really fun for me to do that. I get a lot of my inspiration from movies and TV shows in terms of my own personal style. So if there are other characters from other media that you love the style of, let me know and maybe I will make a video about that next.